Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Poisoner's Almanac podcast. I am your co-host, Adam.
I'm Rebecca.
How are you doing, my dear?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm still out of town, so I actually we did the wedding today. This is our second take for this part of this episode because something went crazy and wacky. Well, I didn't have the land cable.
The land cable.
Yeah, the original session. So yeah. But we, so if I'm like wearing makeup right now and I'm magically not wearing makeup in the other section, it's because I just went to a wedding and I was trying to, appear normal. So here we are. But
cosplaying as a normie.
Yeah, and I am tired. There was a lot of people, and I mean it was nice. It was just it's hard for me to do big events like that, but we did it. They're also doing the air show down here.
Oh.
Yeah. They normally do that in July. I don't know why they're doing it right now. It's the USMC, so it's the Marine base that's hosting it, I guess. But people are downtown watching it too. So, but so it's just been jets all day.
Yes,
and yesterday too. So there's been honestly quite a bit of traffic because of that. Because I guess flying and like airplanes, I guess it's not my special interest, and I have to remember that some people really like that stuff. And so like for me, I'm just like, who comes from hours away to watch planes? And I'm like, well, I guess if it was poisonous plants, I would probably do that. So
see, there you go. There you go.
It is what it is.
Yes. So, Becca is on the coast and I am back at home. So Becca is using her bootleg setup.
I am.
And we forgot, I forgot to pack the little tabletop mic stand for her. So her microphone is literally sitting on a stack of books.
Yeah,
so we're just
on my stack of books right here. I'm like, I hope I got it close enough.
We're just making it happen here.
Yeah. And there's like, it's so boring behind me. I usually have something behind me, but there's nothing. And like, I feel like it kind of washes me out. It's just like the same color as my hair.
It kind of is.
But hey, it is what it is.
But you really look beautiful, so there's that.
Oh, thank you.
I like that people can actually see you when I compliment you now, and then they can be like, he's right.
You just love me because of my brain.
I mean, yeah. She's got the hottest brain I've ever seen.
It's chaos up there.
Oh, yes. Your brain wakes up in a fist fight. We recently made a video where your brain is like a monstera plant, where it's unruly and like growing everywhere and difficult to keep under control. But every now and then it sprouts a new leaf.
Every now and then. But it needs support, like that chair I have leaning up against it right now. Don't move that chair.
It needs support, like a dining room chair. Do we sit in that chair? Absolutely not. Are you nuts? It's holding the plant up.
Well, that's the squeaky chair anyway, and I don't like the squeaky chair.
Is it really?
It is. We have one chair that anyone who sits in it, it squeaks. It squeaks.
Yes.
I don't know why. I don't know what happened to it, but it squeaks. And there's no fixing it. I've tried fixing it. It drives me nuts. So now it's supporting my monstera.
Especially the fire that smokes. Story time. I escaped a religious cult 7 years ago. Without going into too much detail here, let me just say it was an extremely difficult journey. My mental health spiraled downhill, and I thankfully had enough presence of mind to seek out a therapist to work through what was going on with me. My therapist helped give me context to all the wild things I had walked away from. He was kind, patient, and guided me through what my new normal might look like. I had never had healthy boundaries in my life. Therapy helped show me that, as a result of being in a cult or a high control group, I had never fully become my own person. It's a shocking thing to learn at the age of 32. I learned how to communicate to the people around me what I was going to do, and more importantly, not do with my time, energy, and resources. BetterHelp is the sponsor of this episode, and they're on a mission to make starting therapy easier. BetterHelp is a platform where therapists and their clients can communicate effectively and get the most out of therapy. There's a journal inside the platform for personal reflection, and there are group sessions on a number of different topics available every day. Starting therapy is easy with BetterHelp. Fill out a questionnaire, and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. One of the best features of BetterHelp is that if the first therapist doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch to another one until you find someone you really connect with. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. If you're struggling and think you'd benefit from a therapy session, go to betterhelp.com/almanac or choose the Poisoner's Almanac during sign up and get 10% off your first month of therapy. So yeah, that'll bring us to some housekeeping for the old podcast. Make sure to follow us on whatever platform you're watching or listening on, or subscribe, or however, what you know what to do. Use all the buttons. You know what I'm saying? Thank you in advance for leaving 5-star reviews. I see those just creeping up every single week. Thank you guys so much. That works like a digital tip jar and pushes the podcast further into algorithms, and then eventually to the ears of listeners like yourself who enjoy it. Make sure to follow us on socials. We've got links in the show notes for all that. There is now an official podcast TikTok and a podcast YouTube to go along with the podcast Instagram. I've just remembered we should make a podcast Facebook, because there's still tons of people on, Facebook and stuff that are finding
Whenever
podcasts
I think of
that way.
Facebook, I think of like just AI images.
Yes. AI videos.
Maybe like once a week I'll put an AI image of myself doing something weird. Can you do that?
That'd
Can you
be
just
hysterical.
like chat GPT a picture of yourself?
Yes.
I don't know how any of this works. Any of it. So I know how to tell the difference. Like I can tell, like, oh, my guy has 8 fingers. It's probably not real. I can spot things that are obviously AI most of the time, but
so
like
much
I'll
fun.
get pictures sent to me from family members. Can you believe this? And like that's not real.
That was made by a robot, Aunt Debbie.
So yeah.
Also, if you're listening on your phone, screenshot it and then post that to your socials and tag us in it so that we can reshare that and interact with you guys on the old internets. The Patreon is up and running. Link in the show notes to join that. Patrons get perks, which include the option to leave a voicemail on the podcast, which we will hear another one today. Bonus episodes every week. And also, you get shouted out by name on the podcast. And speaking of, those people are as follows: 87 Pens Girl 71, Mara Santiago, Kate the Fairy, Grace Lahan, Genevieve, Nahev Shatrit, Jay Went, Incan Hafner, Kira Yorsek, Tay of Sunshine, Monique, Shane R., Sue Steves, James Mills, Megan Geiler, Liz B., Wooly Wolf NZ, Mama G., Nicole Rivers, Richard Miyako, Heather Nolan, Katie Rose, Kaylee, Sasha Rubel, Maya Showstock, Maggie's Yarm, Ogre the Viking, Lynn Rocket, Brett Moser, Zaid, Neil Houdini, Nicole Crane, Jefferson Vargas, Carmen Q, Sarah G., Knitting Ninja, Estar, Olive Octopus, Betsy Rich, Terrorsaurus Hex, T-Bug, Christine Moljadi, Morgan Brittingham, Blaufrosch, also known as Clara Jurison, Vix, Anne Maria, Carl Ziegler Jr., Clyde, Jennifer Wilson Richter, Macaulay Sterland, Too Fidgety, Wendy G., Elena MK, Vilma Anderson, Caitlin Martin, Pungrammed 101, Minnesota SPT, Michael McCombs, Tasha, Stuart Slattery, Prim Risen, Simone Valdez, Christian Scradergaard, Maria Anna, Bonnie, Oma D., Rynel Alara, Kristen Arnold, Aaron Carey, Lynn Simpson, Melissa Emmel, Desiree Davis, Jennifer Ramirez Johnson, Dalek Party, The Warped Witch, Sometimes Jules, Mr. Slave, Dizzy Dancer, Creative Otter, Yadmit, Supergirl Sway, Rachel, Anya Brandt, Ebby, Leah Marie Matson, Lady Digitalis, Jesse, Shay 10, Julia Franzoni, Sparks, Gloria Eichmann, Thomas Huff, From Strings to Things, Soy Kasumi, and last but not least, Jessica Gasparini. Of the Gasparinis. From Brooklyn. I think we might have had a date once.
Nice sweater.
Joe Jr.'s still single. Oh, man. You need to discover the child within and lean into your feminine side and, don't start eating your feelings or you blow up like my Aunt Roberta.
God.
I'm sorry. We're quoting while you were sleeping, just so you guys know. Oh, that's funny. Nice sweater.
My mom used to be in love with, is it Bill Pullman? The guy that's in that?
Bill Pullman.
She loved that man.
Yeah,
Which
man.
is funny because he's like the only guy that had hair that she loved, because she always loved guys that were like Bruce Willis, or now she likes Jason Statham, which I'm like, I don't know. The guy has the emotional range of a rock to me. But
yes, Jason Statham is the new Bruce Willis.
But I'm not an actor either.
That's not fair. Jason Statham they have the exact same shaped skull.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like that action movie dude kind of thing, I guess.
On the Beekeeper.
But hey,
Speaking of patrons with perks and leaving voicemails, we have another voicemail from Minnesota SPT, also known as Abby. And let's give this a listen.
Hello, I'm Minnesota SPT. I'm a first-year physical therapy student.
Woo.
And I'm currently in the middle of my midterms week. So with studying and school, I've got a little behind on podcasts. So I'm looking forward to marathoning them this spring break, which is going to be next week. I just need to make it Friday. Yesterday I had my scientific inquiry midterm, and Sunday night as part of my break, I just listened to the first half of the measles episode from last week. And it was funny how many vocab words I've been learning about external validity and sample size and reporting, and also looking at scientific evidence that kind of overlapped with that episode. And I just want to say that I love what you do, and I'm happy to follow you. You don't need to know where you're going. I think you two are so fun, and it's great to look forward to even just seeing that you post it. So to anybody else who's been mentally scripting a voicemail for the last 3 months, now's your time. And I look forward to catching up soon. Just not today, but in 5 days, I will be catching up.
Oh, that was adorable. Thank you so much, Abby.
Maybe I should leave a voicemail.
You should. I would love to hear it. Also, Abby, let us know how all of your exams went. I know that life.
Yeah. Stressful times.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was super cute. And yes, the vocab, the language, all that stuff you learn about critically consuming clinical research data is very fun and very helpful and very important for obviously clinicians to know, but also for the public at large to really understand it. That kind of language and knowledge, it keeps you from sliding into the abyss of an epistemic crisis where you never know what you know, if that makes sense, or you don't know why you know what you know. That's what the clinical research institution is supposed to do for us. Clinical research data should help us, discover what is safe and effective treatment for this and that. So, yes, we very much enjoyed the measles episode. That was a really great one.
Yeah, we'll be going over some of that a little bit later in the episode too. But yeah.
Well, that'll bring us to today's topic, my dear, which is, drum roll, please.
Well, I can't do a drum roll.
It would totally shake the camera because it's my webcam and all. So just imagine.
Anyway, but it's spring, at least here, where the states are. I know in some places it's the opposite, because The Earth is round and it spins.
The tilting of the Earth axis.
It's round, but it's more like the Earth's not flat. It's spherical.
That's right.
Yeah. So honestly, I'm kind of jealous of those going through fall right now because fall is like my favorite season. But then again, they would be having Halloween in like spring, and that would be kind of weird to me. But then again, like from what I've heard, I think Americans take Halloween a little more seriously than the rest of the world does.
Yeah, like we like our consumer culture has a stranglehold on Halloween. Like,
but Halloween here is fun. You know, you get like the pumpkins.
It is.
I paint them, not cut them because mold. We live in the South, and it's still hot and humid by then. So, and then you get to dress up. I still dress up. I mean, I'm 40 and I still dress up. It's great fun.
100%.
I've always thought cosplay was really fun, really cool. But like, I'm too broke to do that. Because you got to be able to, like, if you can't sew, which I cannot, then you got to be able to like probably buy stuff, you know, and I can't do that either. So, because that stuff gets expensive. It's cool looking, but you know, it's like, cool outfit, food, right? So
that's right.
Anyway, responsibilities. I don't want any responsibilities. Remember Rugrats? And they was big people. I don't want to be a big people anymore.
Oh man.
But anyway, yeah. We take a lot of holidays more seriously though. St. Patrick's Day, you literally just throw green dye everywhere. So
that's a economic machine function, because if consumption ever drops below 70%, that's actually the definition of one of the markers of recession. So literally every month in America, there is some sort of holiday thing going on that provokes more consumption, more purchasing from. That makes
sense. It was at Easter this month, right?
Exactly.
Next month is Mother's Day.
Mother's Day, Memorial. Oh, is Memorial Day in May?
Well, I think both of them are.
Right. So there's that.
So some we get 2 for 1. There's some I don't care about. I really don't care about Valentine's Day.
Right, but its function is the same.
I know, which I think is weird. I'm like, why? I'm like, don't spend that money on flowers. They're going to die. If you're going to buy me something, give me a plant that I can keep alive. Then again, that's something else for me to do. And I don't know. There's certain holidays that I'm just like, I don't get it. But you know, it's whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do the same thing for St. Patrick's Day. We do the same thing for Cinco de Mayo. A lot of them, they're not even our holidays.
No.
But like, yeah, we take. I don't go out and be around all the people and do stuff. But like, it gets taken pretty seriously around here. Like, it's mostly drinking. Those are mostly drinking holidays. Let's be honest. St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah. All the white people pack out the Mexican restaurants, and the Mexicans feed us alcohol and roll their eyes the entire time.
Yeah, they don't even know.
Because they're like, we don't really care about this.
They don't even know what it means. They can't count in Spanish. They don't know what it means. They just know like, oh, I get drinks. So, well, you know, same thing with like St. Patrick's Day. They probably don't even know St. Patrick wasn't even Irish. He was taken there, but he wasn't. You know, they don't know the meaning behind the holiday. They just want to drink during it.
No, it doesn't matter. Just keep bringing us the booze.
You know, and you know what? Have a drink. That's fine. I'm just a fan of like knowing the meaning behind something.
Oh yes, you are.
And so like, I just like to know why I'm doing something. And we're all different, but here we are. But enough about holidays. I'm not actually supposed to be talking about holidays.
Right.
But yeah, you know, spring, season of sneezing and storms and bugs, and of course, planting and gardening. You know, for those who enjoy doing that kind of thing. I enjoy it, but it can be a lot, especially here where it gets to be like over 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer. It can be a lot. So, and you can garden during other seasons too, I suppose. Like, you know, a lot of the greener, like kale and lettuces and stuff, they tend to like cooler weather. But you get what I'm saying. Tomatoes, potatoes, cucumbers, squash, peppers. Peppers grow really well here. Well, I should say they probably here too, but in Georgia where we live, because like they like the heat. They don't mind it.
Totally fine with it.
So, but yeah, many of our foods are grown outside, but sometimes poisons can sneak up on us through them as well.
Mhm.
For instance, let's go over rhubarb. Rhubarb. It's just fun to say. Rhubarb. Rhubarb. This plant has actually been cultivated in Asia for over 5,000 years, where it was used as food and medicine. The British and Americans began using it in food and in baking in the late 18th, the early 19th century. For my fellow folklore and mythology fans, in Persian Zoroastrianism, which is like the pre-Islamic religion of Iran, in that area, the creation mythology, humans sprang forth from rhubarb. Just came out of the rhubarb. Anyway, but technically, the mother and father of humanity grew from the stalk, which of the rhubarb that grew from the seed of this one known as the primal man after his death. It's really it's a lot of complex stories and lore in there. But yeah, rhubarb. Now, Indian rhubarb, which is a medicinal form, it's a different species, but it's rhubarb. It symbolizes purity, abundance, and the cycle of life there in India. It also represents fertility and growth. So the pretty red stalks of the rhubarb that we know of are edible. And I know it all sounds innocent enough, but parts of this plant, mainly the leaves, can lead to organ failure.
That was a nice segue.
This is actually due to the oxalic acid found in its leaves. Oxalic acid is actually found in the leaves of many houseplants, including my monstera, and is what usually makes them toxic to children and pets. I mean, adults shouldn't go around snacking on them either, but I feel like most of us aren't trying to do that. Like I said, such plants as monstera, dumb cane, peace lilies.
I'm sorry. Did you say dumb cane?
Dumb cane, yes.
Okay.
Don't worry, we'll go over why it's called that too.
Sure.
Philodendrons, anthuriums, caladiums, and also the oxalis genus, which is like your wood sorrels, the little pretty clovers that are pretty easy to find when we live. You can kind of see them mixed in with some of the grass sometimes, or you can grow them yourself. There's this really pretty purple version out there. It's like the 3-leaf clovers you see. So. Now, oxalic acid is also used for industrial cleaning purposes, such as removing rust, stains, and waxes, and dyeing textiles, Also cleaning wood. It could be known as wood bleach. Like it's very caustic. And for general stripping and cleaning of other materials. Oxalic acid is a metabolite of ethylene glycol, like in antifreeze. I know we've talked about ethylene glycol in the past. And while small amounts are harmless and found in many fruits, vegetables, you can see it it's in Swiss chard, beetroot, turnips, spinach, kale, like all those leafy greens. It's also in some nuts and whole grains. It's even a product in human metabolism. But it can be quite harmful and even deadly in large amounts. Though these days, it's pretty rare these days to be poisoned by eating a houseplant or even rhubarb leaves. We know not to snack on those or eat them in high amounts, right?
Do that again so the viewer can see. That's it. Don't do that.
Don't do that. But yeah. So it was actually found to be useful for cleaning in 1882 after a chemist in Indianapolis named George William Hoffman boiled some rhubarb in a pot and noticed that the pot was really clean and shiny after he did this. Guessing he just put the whole thing in there and boiled it. Obviously, it was something he did again and again. Being a scientist, the effect proved to be the same. So obviously he looked into the reason and boom, oxalic acid. Now, when used for cleaning purposes, it is formed in larger amounts using various chemical processes. You can see it as this white crystalline powder in its solid form. Technically, it can be made by oxidizing carbohydrates like glucose or sucrose using nitric acid or with air and like some sort of catalyst. You can also oxidize plant waste itself. Historically, it was made by treating sawdust with caustic substances such as sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, then using sulfuric acid to acidify the resulting oxalate. So many different ways you can kind of get enough of it to use for cleaning, to extract it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But as such, it is caustic and very irritating to the body, both inside and out. It can cause burning, severe pain, and vision loss if enough exposure to the skin and eyes occurs. It is also sometimes known as an anti-nutrient, as it can block the absorption of other nutrients like calcium. Usually oxalic acid or oxalate, it can bind to nutrients like iron or calcium, magnesium, and keep the body from absorbing those things. So that sucks. And this is honestly how they're excreted. So like they bind to these things and then they're excreted through your body. And when it binds to calcium, it binds. It does not want to come apart, that kind of thing. So it becomes calcium oxalate, something like that. Yeah. So too much oxalate within the body can bind with calcium to make calcium oxalate, which is not soluble. Like I said, it does not like to break down. This can lead to kidney stones and kidney failure. It's basically the buildup of these like calcium oxalate crystals within the kidneys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It creates a precipitate.
Especially in those like.
That's cool. I mean, it's not cool, but you know what I mean.
But especially when it's in those tubules, those little tiny tubules in your kidneys. Yeah, it can basically cause necrosis there. So, which would lead to failure.
Mm-hmm. Is it? And then, the necrosis probably happens because the tissue is denied blood flow.
So then you have the failure of that particular organ and electrolyte imbalances because it's your kidneys, and this can also lead to deadly effects such as arrhythmias. It's all connected, right? So now, while most healthy adults can excrete oxalic acid from the body if ingested in small amounts, children, pets, and those who have certain conditions may have complications such as mineral deficiencies, renal failure, as I mentioned, and even develop something called oxalosis in more severe cases. This is a condition in which oxalates accumulate in various organs, not just the kidneys, and in tissues, and can lead to damage of the bones, blood vessels, eyes, and heart. So that sucks. Oxalic poisoning from plants rarely results in death, and when it does, it's usually because a pet or a child ate a large amount of the plant that contains it. It does only take a little bit, however, to result in poisoning symptoms that can be quite distressing, such as abdominal pain, chest pain, burns, blisters of the skin, lips, tongue, and gums, vomiting, drooling, mouth pain, and difficulty breathing because of throat pain and swelling. So not a good time. Severe poisoning would progress to seizures, tremors, collapse, and shock. This is if you've had like way too much, or say you're a small child, you wouldn't need as much as, say, an adult. The oral lethal dose of oxalic acid is around 15 to 30 grams, but just as little as 5 grams has caused death before. Most oxalic poisoning cases these days occur with children accidentally ingesting houseplant leaves, or in those who purposely ingest high amounts of oxalic acid for self-harm reasons. Yeah, It does happen. One case involving the latter actually occurred in Sri Lanka. It was a 32-year-old woman. She ingested oxalic acid via ingesting laundry detergent with water. And it was, she was attempting to die by suicide. Unfortunately, in this area, suicide attempts are not uncommon, and those who try often use such available poisons as yellow oleander, which is like that's their typical suicide plant. Like it has that particular, I don't want to say nickname, but it has that reputation. Paraquat.
Well, that's our next episode.
We mentioned that when we talked about, I think, was it organophosphates? It was in that episode. I can't remember if it was an organophosphate or something, or the other one.
Yeah.
But this was the thing that serial poisoner was using with the vending machine drinks. You remember that one? Yeah. Happened in Japan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, paraquat and organophosphorus compounds, like in pesticides that they can easily obtain. The detergent Prinso, I think it's called, has become rather another poison that's been used for this purpose, as it contains 12.5 grams of oxalic acid. It also contains 1.2 grams of potassium permanganate, which is an irritant in and of itself. But yeah, immediately after ingestion, she experienced abdominal pain and profuse vomiting. She was brought to the local rural hospital, which that word again likes to mess me up with it. Rural.
What was that word? I'm sorry.
But yeah, she was brought there within 2 hours of ingestion.
Horror.
They were able to place an IV and do an initial assessment, but with a lot of rural hospitals, there's not as much they can do as, say, maybe a hospital with more supplies, more technology, things like that. So she was actually transferred to the regional
It's just the way
hospital.
you're saying that word.
Once there, they noticed she was drowsy. She had a low heart rate, low blood pressure. She was vomiting throughout the day, even hours after ingestion, sometimes vomiting blood. It's a caustic substance, that she swallowed. So it will do that.
Yeah.
3 days later, she had a lot of fluid buildup. So she was edematous. Her kidney lab levels, like her creatinine and BUN, they weren't looking great. So obviously she's having some kidney complications from it, which is pretty typical with oxalic acid poisoning. So she was sent to yet another hospital, and where she ended up being feverish. She arrived with a high respiratory rate. She was nauseated, still experiencing swelling as well as chest tightness, probably a lot of buildup of fluid in the lung area. And her labs revealed metabolic acidosis, so her pH was on the lower side. She was more acidic, basically, probably because of some electrolyte imbalances, but also just her body not being able to filter out things and just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Well, you said it binds to calcium
It also binds
really hard,
to magnesium. It can bind to iron.
Yeah, any of the electrolytes. It can just sequester any of those things. And if it binds to it and won't let go, it depletes the level of that thing.
Especially with
blood.
calcium.
It's not readily
and
available.
Actually, I think it's 90% of all kidney stones are made up of calcium oxalates. Yeah. Yeah.
What?
So, here we go.
Oh. Huh.
So they performed a kidney biopsy 5 days later, discovered acute nephritis, makes sense, associated with damage to renal tubules from oxalic crystals. She did later recover, but after about 2 weeks of hospitalization, so a lot of care involved. Yeah. Now, and she's relatively young, so I don't think she had any long-term complications or anything like that, at least. Now, rhubarb, I know we talked about rhubarb, so I'm coming back to that. Rhubarb leaves also contain anthraquinones, which are anthraquinone,
It sounds like anthrax.
Anthraquinone glycosides like imodin, alloimodin,
bless you,
crisophenol, and rain and physosin. There's quite a few of them. I'm just kind of giving examples. And anthraquinones. Oh my God, this word's gonna kick my butt. Anthraquinones are polyphenols, so plant-based compounds with possible health benefits. This does not mean let's eat them. These compounds travel to the intestines where the bacteria there break them down, and the products cause a laxative effect. So they've been used for a long time for medicinal purposes as laxatives, those kinds of things. So yeah, it basically enhances peristalsis to move food through the colon faster, causes the intestines to kind of secrete water, or and for your body not to readily absorb that water, so it's still there. you may know the drug Senna or Senecot. Yeah, this works this way as well because of the anthraquinone glycosides that are within it as well.
That is really cool.
Yeah, so
interesting.
But as I said, it was used in Chinese medicine as laxatives. Also in India, I think it was used medicinally for the same thing. But it's also known for like their antioxidant properties and experimental use in cancer treatments. However, too much for too long can lead to, like I said, laxative dependence as well as colorectal cancers. So that stinks. Literally.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Wow.
So, yeah. Now, the stalks of the rhubarb plant that we typically see, it's rhubarbarum in like people's gardens or that you find in the grocery stores. These are edible, the stalks are, and safe for baking, cooking. They are healthy, they should be enjoyed. These rhubarb in general, or Indian rhubarb, they're kind of, I'm not sure if they're the exact same species, but they're definitely similar. They are not considered edible, they're just used in traditional medicine. So I have a fun story about rhubarb and its toxic leaves. I say fun, but maybe it's more educational and kind of unfortunate. So World War I brought about many horrific circumstances, including poisoning via chemical weapons. It was known as the Chemists' War for a reason. Some were poisoned, however, not by various gases and chemicals, but by the leaves of an otherwise popular vegetable, rhubarb. The one we've been discussing for a little while now. Just like in many times of war, there were food shortages, in certain countries affected by the war as well, in England, of course. So the government attempted to assist those dealing with this by sending out this advisory stating that citizens should eat rhubarb leaves to replace other vegetables that they had to give up or limit. So they're like, yeah, just make a salad out of that, right? Yeah.
Oh, no.
Now, the oxalic acid content of rhubarb leaves can vary. The typical value is about 0.5 to 1%, meaning a 65 kilogram adult would need to eat about 4 to 5 kilograms or like 9 to 18 pounds to make them more poisonous. To obtain a lethal dose, excuse me. Now, cooking the leaves with baking soda can make them more poisonous because it produces soluble oxalates. So, but anyway, the suggestion by the British government to eat rhubarb leaves actually resulted in many poisoning cases and at least one death. And the advisory was rescinded afterward. So that was not good advice.
Upon further review.
No, it was not. You can eat the
It
stalks.
was not.
Don't eat the leaves. And like if you eat one leaf, you're like, I didn't die. Okay, great. You're probably going to feel great, but don't keep eating them either. So now one of the many houseplants that I mentioned that contain oxalic acid and lead to poisoning is the dumb cane. Quite interested in the name of that plant, the Dieffenbachia genus of
I'm already
plants.
on board.
Now, it's called dumb cane because when the leaves are bitten, the crystals of calcium oxalate actually embed in your mouth and throat, causing swelling, making speech and breathing difficult. So it can cause you not to be able to speak. So dumb cane.
Wow.
We don't call it dumb anymore, but you know what I mean. Back in the day, that's just what they called. Actually, this plant can even shoot these needle-like crystals of oxalic acid known as rhaphides when the specialized cells holding those crystals are broken by biting or chewing. Sort of like a little microscopic blow dart. If you're chewing on them, it just, yeah, and it can, So
Are you
chewing
joking?
the leaves can cause just a host of unpleasant symptoms, including intense numbing, oral irritation, excessive drooling, localized swelling. It can also accidentally be rubbed into the eyes, cause temporary vision loss. Now, these effects are rarely life-threatening, but they're not fun. In most cases, symptoms are mild and can be successfully treated with like analgesic agents, like pain meds, antihistamines, or also like charcoal, like the medical kind. You don't just put charcoal in your mouth, but you know what I mean. That. Prolonged exposure within the mouth can lead to severe pain and swelling in the mouth and throat that may require further care to help these symptoms, like not cause breathing problems. So it's just, I don't know why you'd want to keep it in your mouth, but I mean, I think we've all either seen or heard of that show Jackass, and I'm sure if they knew, they probably would have tried it. Here we are.
What a throwback.
So there again, like I give you this information too to make sure it's just put your plants in a place that children can't get to them or your pets, because like if they're even curious, ouch, right? You don't want that to happen to them.
Yes.
So there was actually a case of an 8-year-old who was messing around with a dumb cane plant, and they're pretty plants, just don't chew them. She was apparently sticking a pin into the soil or whatever, like kids, they just like to mess with stuff. But then she put the pin into her mouth. This was enough for it to cause symptoms, though, and this is what the mother reported happened. 5 minutes after this, she began to experience pain, numbness, and swelling in her lips and tongue, as well as some respiratory distress, likely because her throat was probably swelling up a little bit. Her mother brought her to the emergency department, where she was treated with steroids and antihistamines. Steroids probably for the inflammation, It was determined via x-ray that she had not aspirated anything that could lead to choking. They wanted to make sure that was like it. They didn't want to leave anything undone. But her symptoms did improve a few hours after treatment. She was monitored closely afterward for like 24 hours to ensure that airway obstruction or shortness of breath did not develop due to the toxic effects of Dieffenbachia, dumb cane. However, after 24 hours of observation, the child made a full recovery. Similar effects can happen with such plants as philodendrons as well. Like I have a philodendron. It just kind of, it's viney, kind of hangs down. They grow really fast, so just try to keep them away from kids and pets.
Oh, it's that plant that you trimmed. It was on all the way down to the floor, and you trimmed it up to
it. Now they're
the
down
pot,
to the
and it's grown down again.
They're fun to grow.
You propagated it.
Make sure you don't have pets or kids eating them.
Yeah. When my parents were here to help me fix the garbage disposal, I actually showed them all the plants that you've propagated. They thought
that was an easy
really
one
cool
to do too. That one, monsteras are pretty easy to propagate. There have been some though that are like, that don't like me. They're like, no, I'm not doing that. It just is what it is. So, but moral of the story, keep your house plants away from the reach of children and pets, or only keep those that are not considered toxic. Honestly, it's best to just teach children as they age not to bite, taste, or eat plants that they don't know or without permission. It's just good to know, because if they're outside, you don't want them doing that either. Yes. Like we used to like to suck on the honeysuckles outside. Remember that was a thing? But I remember getting in trouble because my mom was all like, you don't know if anybody's like sprayed those with like pesticides or anything. My mom was super anxious anyway, but she's right though. We don't know. Like, the neighbor could have sprayed them with something we don't know. So it's just, it's important to teach your kids like, hey, ask at least.
Y'all, we have considered naming this podcast Becca's Health Anxiety.
But yeah.
Anyways.
And they weren't really that good. It was just like a kid thing. Like, look, we're taking over the earth. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we're pretending to be witches.
It's just like onion tops,
Like instead of like pies, we made like potions when I was a kid. Yeah, we got bored with the mud pies. So.
That's right.
But yeah, it's best to teach your kids to not just grab things and eat them. I mean, I imagine you do anyway, but especially when they're young, like hey, don't do that, or just keep them away. Now let's talk about potatoes. Yeah.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
I'm about to teach you more about potatoes than you probably ever wanted to know. But
oh no.
I like growing potatoes and sweet potatoes in those big like bag planters. They stand up, but they're not like floppy bags. They stand up or whatever, and they have the Velcro opening in the front.
Yep.
And you wait for them to grow and flower and all that. Then you can just kind of open it, reach through, and just grab the tubers without disrupting the rest of the plant. It's just because then they can keep growing. I don't know. I like them that way, and the flowers are just really pretty on like sweet potato plants. I just like them. They're fun to watch grow. Now, potatoes are great. They're yummy, filling, and all that. It's more of a carb-rich, starchy type of vegetable. Down here, we like them mashed with a bit of gravy, you know, a lot of the time. There's many ways you can eat them. I feel like I can hear like Bubba Gump, not Bubba
Amen.
Gump, Bubba from Forrest Gump, like listing all the ways you can eat a certain food. And like, it's that way for potatoes with me. I'm like, you can do this, you can mash them, you can stew them, you can, you know, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, he was my favorite. Besides Lieutenant Dan, he was like my favorite character in that movie. And then like when he died, I was like, well, this sucks. I don't watch this anymore.
So sad. And nowadays, neither one of them would have ever been let into the military.
I don't know. I remember watching that movie and I just like, I wouldn't watch it again. It was too long. Like, I'm glad I watched it like at least once, but it was like,
it's very long.
There were certain characters and I'm just like, why is she there? I'm so sick of her. Anyway, I won't go into detail.
Jenny. She's talking about Jenny.
Anyway, but potatoes originated thousands of years ago, maybe even like 10,000 years ago, near the Andes region of South America. The Incans also loved potatoes and even had a goddess of potatoes. And I'm going to try to say this name. I tried looking it up and I couldn't find it. Axumama. What?
I'm sorry.
What's wrong with Axumama?
Axe your mama.
She's going to come throw a potato at you.
Exactly. Respect those potatoes or she's going to come axe your mama.
Really? Technically, every crop had a protective goddess with their culture. So
axe your daddy, axe your brother, axe your sister.
All right, Lizzie Borden, chill out.
if you don't know, axe your mama.
Are you done?
It's too easy. Are
we done? I'm not going to be able to get through the potato section because there's.
I make no guarantees.
So yeah, these protective goddess or gods or goddesses, they were offered the best of the crops, as they represented. So like I said, each one had kind of a protective goddess to ensure good crops for the next season. And she is the daughter of the earth goddess. And potatoes were considered sacred and often even buried with the dead. So, pretty cool. They were also a symbol of abundance and fertility and used in art and for medicinal purposes, including to help with childbirth somehow. I don't know details. I don't. There are obviously many varieties of potatoes and many had their own uses. There was something called the bride's potato, for instance. It's this like fist-sized potato, but it's like lumpy and like kind of warty a little bit. Like it's bumpy. And it's called the bride's potato because an Incan woman would have to like peel it in order to prove her worth as a wife before marriage. I'm guessing it was hard because it was like lumpy. I'd have done thrown that thing. I just wouldn't get married. I'd be like one of those spinsters, like, you know, that like gives vague prophecies or something.
Oh my God.
In the bog. I don't know. Are there bogs there? I don't know. But anyway, that'd be me. I wouldn't be able to do it.
Gives vague prophecies from the bog. If you guys want a vague prophecy, come see me in the bog.
I'll make it sound convincing. I'm just saying.
Oh man. You'll get your money's worth. Don't worry.
Bring me potatoes.
Yes. That one's going to cost you 2 potatoes.
Now it's important. It's important. Honestly, makes sense though because this was an important food source for them. It was vital to the economy, you know, just within their culture and around them. But not everyone was a fan of the potato at first. When they were introduced to parts of Europe in the second half of the 16th century, they were brought over by like Portuguese traders and stuff. Not traitors, but traders. I don't know if they were traders. Maybe they were traders. I don't know. Right. But they were trading.
Who knows?
But yeah, in England, some compared their appearance to truffles, which today are considered kind of like delicacies. But at the time, they were linked with death, witchcraft, and evil because of the way they looked, I guess. I don't know.
Oh.
They wouldn't have liked me. The way I would have messed with some of these people. Oh my gosh. Now, some held to superstitions as well that they carried diseases like leprosy or the plague somehow. I don't know. Rumors, you know, whatever. In
It's
some
science.
places in Europe, they were considered as food fit only for pigs and prisoners. Rude. It was even banned in France at one time. It was actually this is a great story though. It was a French pharmacist, I'm gonna try to get his name right, Antoine Augustin Parmentier, who served in the 7 Years' War, and he was a prisoner of the Prussians for a bit, and he's the guy who basically changed this idea or started the change for potatoes in that area. But his captors, while he was a prisoner of war, fed him some potatoes as his rations. They were like, here is what you're going to eat. And he actually ended up liking them, and he didn't die of leprosy. And so he was like, hey, that's cool. So he was later released, and he returned to France, where he set about proving that potatoes were a great source of nutrition. They were like a cheap, easy way to be fed, and they were yummy. Now, the ban on potatoes was lifted in 1772, but the French people still shunned the potato. He still made it his life's mission, though.
Les shun.
No potatoes here.
We shun your potatoes. Les shun.
But he actually made it his life's mission to prove the potato was cool, and I honestly approve, to be honest. He even tried this. He even did various stunts.
That's so rock and roll.
To try to get it popular. Like one stunt, he actually started growing potatoes in this field, and he hired these heavily armed men to guard it, and so it would encourage people to steal it, because I guess if it looks valuable, it becomes so. So it was like a weird case of reverse psychology, I guess. Or I guess if you can't have it, then you want it. So he was like, if we guard it, then people will be like, oh wow, I want what's in that field. Anyway, but potato.
Man, listen, that's such an old sales tactic.
Yeah.
That's false urgency.
Well, this guy tried it. Potato really didn't take off though.
Brilliant.
Until in France, until the Revolution. In 1789 and after, maybe a little bit before too, but in 1794, Madame Marigot, or is it Madame Marigot, published La Cuisinière Républicaine,
Probably.
which was a cookbook basically promoting potatoes as good for the common people. So, I mean, if you're in the middle of a revolution, you're like,
oh, yeah.
Yay for the common people, down
baby.
with the aristocracy, right?
Well, yeah, it sounds like it was banned just because it wasn't classy enough.
Well, they also
or whatever.
believed that it carried leprosy at one point for some reason. I don't know, it was a source of...
Right. Okay.
Or that it was
because poor people
the
ate
witch's
it?
vegetable.
Is that where that
I don't
came
know.
from?
Or the witch's tuber.
Yeah.
What is a potato? Potato's a vegetable, but it's like one of those root vegetables, right? Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, potatoes did help people during famines and bad harvests, just before the revolution too. Like I said, they were easy to plant, and so now in French, I always found this fascinating. Potatoes are pommes de terre, or this means apples of the earth. I always thought that was just a really cool way of explaining what potatoes were.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, just a fun fact.
Yeah.
Now, why the heck am I talking about potatoes in this episode? Because I know it feels like I've gone way off track. That potatoes aren't poisonous, right? Well, potatoes are part of the nightshade family, and we've mentioned that before. But I want to discuss what happens when they turn green.
Yes.
When exposed to the sun, or even another light source, if it's good enough, they turn green as they produce chlorophyll. They also increase production of something called solanine, which is a glycoalkaloid and a neurotoxin. Now, this toxin is supposed to protect the tuber from being eaten while it starts to sprout. Sometimes if you leave them alone too long, they start to sprout, and it's like... But if these green potatoes are eaten, they can cause such symptoms as nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, and even serious neurological problems and death in high enough amounts. Now, they're very bitter, too, at this point. It's not like you'd want to eat it, I wouldn't think. But a 16-ounce, it's a 450-gramish fully green potato is enough to make an adult sick. And no amount should be given to children, as their bodies are smaller. And they are more susceptible to poisoning, basically. Now, cooking does not remove the solanine
Mm-hmm.
either. So, like, cooking them is not going to make it any better. If you have potatoes with a little green in them, you can cut those parts off before cooking if it's just a little bit. This is why you're supposed to store potatoes in a dark, cool place after buying them. If you're unsure of the edibility, just toss it in the trash or stick it in the ground. See if it'll grow. Yeah, so, I mean, like, it's,
Right?
better than getting sick. That's all I'm saying. Now, some other foods from the garden. Let's talk about beans. Green beans, red kidney beans, and white kidney beans naturally contain the toxin photohemagglutinin. I forgot an N. Photohemagglutinin. That is a long word. That's a big word, Elmo.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
I was just about to say you forgot an N on the end there.
Sound-wise, N. Yeah. Now, when the beans are eaten raw or undercooked, you can experience a sort of food poisoning that kind of brings about nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. So, well, it won't kill you, but you're not going to be happy about it. Bamboo shoots. Now, these aren't, like, I guess, a typical part of your garden, vegetable garden or whatever, but they're actually meant to be cooked before eaten as well, unless you're a panda, I guess. But raw shoots contain cyanogenic glycosides and can cause a pretty nasty case of food poisoning themselves. So,
cyanogenic, like leading to the production of cyanide. I'm going to talk about another one
too that is like this. Cassava.
Okay.
I think it's cassava, right? It also contains cyanogenic glycosides, and eating without proper preparation can cause food poisoning and even death. Cassava, or Manihot esculenta, is an edible tuberous root that is resistant to drought, diseases, and pests, and it's a major source of carbohydrates in tropical areas. It's actually the second most widely grown and consumed food in Uganda after bananas. It's basically a staple in the diet for approximately 57% of the Ugandan population. So it's a pretty big deal in some places.
Wow.
It actually originated in South America. It was brought to Africa via Portuguese traders again. Like I said, don't know if they were traitors, but they were traders. This was in the 16th century as well. Now, the Makushi people of Guyana, is it Guyana or Guyana? It's Guyana, right? Yeah.
I've heard it said both ways. I don't actually know.
They believe, Guyana believe that cassava plants are owned by a spirit called Cassava Mama. I'm not making it up.
You're making that up.
But, it's cute. I like it. And it probably means something. It probably doesn't even mean, like...
I love it, too.
Mother of cassavas. It probably actually has its own meaning. I'm just saying that that's what it's called. Yeah. They also hold to the belief of treating crops with care and respect to nurture and receive from it. I actually find this fascinating. I love this so much. The farmers actually speak to the crops, and they'll, like, recite spells to encourage growth or leave offerings or charms. They consider, like, them waving in the wind as them saying hello to them, and, like, they treat them with a very personable sort of care, right?
Yeah. Like they're animated.
They also believe that the plants can speak back to their owners via dreams. So, like, maybe in the human form, it'll show up in your dream and tell you things. So it's pretty cool. I think it was fun.
Get out of here.
But superstitions also say that you should not visit the crops if in ill health, or you may offend the cassava mama. So don't do that. There are other myths surrounding this plant from South America, including one about a girl named Mani, who was born from a virgin daughter of a chief of the Tupi people. The young girl was born this pale white, which was very different than, obviously, the people around her. And she died after her first birthday. She was buried, and the cassava plant apparently grew from her grave. After some time, it's a much more complicated story than I'm making it. It's a good story. You can, go online and read it, but I didn't want to, take up a whole lot of time because there is a lot we're talking about. But after some time, they dug up the grave, apparently, and found the pale cassava roots. So it became known there as Mandioca, meaning house of money. There's a few different versions of this story. If you're interested, definitely go take a look at it. It's pretty cool.
Okay. So that's like folklore? Is that like folklore, or is it a true story?
It's just one of their legends
Okay.
kind of
Yeah.
deal. Now, there are wild and sweet cultivars, so like human-made variations, if you will. And it should be known that the cyanogenic content of the wild versions are about as high as 2,000 parts per million of dry weight. This is 200 times the safe level, which is like less than 10 parts per million, recommended by the World Health Organization.
Wow. Yeah, that was my next question. Like, what is the actual, what's the toxic
wild
dose?
cultivars are not recommended for human consumption, obviously. Some farmers still plant wild cultivars, though, because of their resilience to disease and pests and their high yield, But even the sweet cultivars must be prepped before eaten because they too contain high levels, just not as high as the wild ones, of these cyanogenic glycosides. The sweet ones can contain up to 100 parts per million, which is still way over the safe limit. But prep involves peeling the tubers, soaking them in water for like 4 to 6 days. I would have done forgot that they were over there. Like, it'd be like me with doing laundry. Like, did I have something in the washing machine? Yeah, like I would have forgotten.
This is not a recipe for anyone who has inattentive ADHD.
But then
Sorry.
after soaking them for this amount of time, you're supposed to sun dry them or roast them. Then the outer layer is scraped off and the remainder is ground into like a flour sort of deal. And this process promotes enzymatic degradation of those cyanogenic glycosides, so it makes it safer to eat. Now, if the soaking or drying time is too short, then this will not be adequate to remove these cyanogenic glycosides, and they'll remain high enough to cause poisoning. So during droughts, cassava traders will sometimes fail to follow recommended procedures, which can result in a product with higher levels of cyanogenic glycosides that can lead to cyanide poisoning. So that's not cool, but it happens. Now, other methods of detoxing tubers include similar actions such as peeling, cutting, and soaking the roots for several hours or even up to a few days, and then boiling them for at least 20 to 30 minutes, that kind of thing. This will make it safer to eat. Not doing any of this will result in cyanide poisoning. Yeah. There was such an outbreak of poisoning in western Uganda in 2017 after a funeral during which those present had eaten this cassava dish. It was made with cassava flour that they were later able to trace back to this sort of singular source. But following the funeral, 33 people with symptoms that included diarrhea, vomiting, and abdominal pains were admitted to Bwera Hospital, and I think it's the Cassisi district. I could not find a good pronunciation for that, but I think if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. On September 8th, the Uganda Ministry of Health received notification from this district health team regarding this outbreak or of suspected food poisoning. So like they kind of were like, hey, something's going on. We got all these people in here. In total, 98 were poisoned and 2 died as a result. The investigation that occurred afterward was able to trace this flour back to its original source. Residents can buy cassava from retailers, and they'll oftentimes do that when they need larger quantities for things like communal gatherings or funerals, things like that. So, and it's just easier for them to do that. These retailers that they bought the cassava from got the flour from wholesalers who mainly bought from cassava mills in a town that was about 31 miles away, 50 kilometers away. During the outbreak period, the wholesaler who provided the flour reportedly bought the implicated batch from a town bordering Uganda and Tanzania, so about 174 miles away from there. Now, this was actually further traced back to Tanzania. This batch cost less than the other batches for sale at the time, and it was because it was from wild cultivars. So there we go. Now, this was also agreed upon by others who had attended the funeral, who described the cassava flour dish served at the funeral as pure white, which is typical of flour from wild cultivars instead of the creamy colored flour from like sweeter versions grown locally. Anyway, so it got complicated for a bit, but they tested the flour and it contained high amounts of cyanogenic glycosides. It had about the equivalent of 88 parts per million of cyanide. So again, the recommended safe level is less than 10 parts per million.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt you.
So let's travel to a different part of the world for a minute. This is the rabbit hole that I kind of went down, but you've heard of ginkgo
Okay.
before, right? Like the ginkgo tree?
Yes. Fun fact, some of the best shots from our engagement photos
really pretty
are
leaves.
under
They
a
change
ginkgo
colors.
tree.
They're just really pretty shapes too.
That's right.
But I want to talk about their seeds and their leaves, but the seeds mostly. The tree itself is believed to be one of the world's oldest species of trees living today. Some specimens in China are believed to be over 1,000 years old. This tree actually originates from China and has been cultivated around the world since as an ornamental tree, which is probably why it's in our town back home. So, the Chinese name for this plant is yinjing. In Mandarin, it means silver fruit. It's called Iko, I think, in Japanese. It is featured in a lot of Eastern Asian artworks and is symbolic of longevity, hope, endurance, and fertility. 6 of these trees, of these ginkgo trees that were planted near a Japanese monastery in Hiroshima in the 1850s actually survived the atomic bomb attack of 1945. And this further encouraged its symbolism for like hope and endurance, longevity, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a pretty cool fact.
Oh my God.
Like they're still there.
That is so rad. Those particular trees are still there. Whoa. I never knew that. That's insane. A nuclear blast. Oh, brother.
Yeah, those trees have seen things.
That's incredible.
So,
yeah.
Now,
you can say that again.
The ginkgo tree is a deciduous plant with green leaves turning golden in autumn. We've seen, I think, them turn yellow when we were taking those pictures that time. And
they were fully turned yellow, really and they were all over the ground.
But
all
these
around.
seeds
It was gorgeous.
that are contained in the ginkgo fruits that are produced, I think, only on the female trees. The leaves are very pretty. Like I said, they've been used in herbal medicines and in supplements for a long time, as it's believed to have some cardioprotective, neuroprotective qualities, anti-cancer qualities. Ginkgo biloba is one of the best-selling botanical dietary supplements in the U.S. At like $94 million in 2012. Total worldwide sales in ginkgo products were, this is US dollars, $1.26 billion in 2012, $178 million worth being sold in China, $152 million worth in Germany, and $40 to $61 million worth in Australia, France, Brazil, and Korea. Now, I do have some unfortunate news. According to one article I read in the National Library of Medicine, more recently, ginkgo biloba leaf extract has been classified as a possible human carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, along with other natural products such as aloe vera extract and kava extract. Now, these are when ingested.
Okay. When ingested. Okay. But, what's the mechanism of action that makes it carcinogenic?
Well, I'm going to go over the study that I went through a little bit. Okay.
Okay, sure.
It went on to explain that the 3 commonly claimed health effects of ginkgo biloba leaf extract are improved blood circulation, improved memory, and beneficial effects on symptoms of old age, probably like cognitive type stuff. However, Franson and colleagues this is the group that did this study, they reanalyzed 26 original studies conducted in healthy volunteers or patients, and as well as 10 meta-analysis and systematic reviews, and concluded that these health benefits could not be substantiated. In addition, neither safety nor efficacy could be guaranteed at the recommended daily dose. I was talking about like in supplement form. In France, a large study was conducted with ginkgo leaf extract for the prevention of Alzheimer's disease. A total of 2,854 participants. They were like, the average age was about 76.8 years old, and over half of these were female. And these participants had spontaneous memory complaints. They were randomized to receive either 120 milligrams twice a day or a placebo that looks, the same in a double-blind trial.
Randomized controlled
conducted
trial
by general practitioners and hospital practitioners
Randomized
specializing
controlled
in memory
trial, if you will.
disorders. So they had like all their I's dotted, their T's crossed, whatever. Now within
There you go.
a 5-year period, 61 and 73 participants were diagnosed with probable Alzheimer's disease in the ginkgo treated and placebo groups respectively. So like 61 in the ginkgo, 73 in the placebo. 76 and 82 participants died in the ginkgo and placebo groups. 65 and 60 participants suffered a stroke in each group. The results from this 5-year study indicate that a long-term use of standardized ginkgo biloba leaf extract did not reduce the risk of progression to Alzheimer's disease compared with the placebo. So they really just couldn't tell the difference. Similar studies were performed in the U.S. that also showed no distinct difference in the rates of decline of cognitive function in those with or without some measure of impairment after use of ginkgo. In order to investigate whether or not ginkgo biloba leaf extract is cardioprotective through its vasodilatory and antihypertensive properties, the effects of the extract on blood pressure and incidence of hypertension, that's high blood pressure, were determined. Among the 3,069 volunteers at baseline, 17% were normotensive, so like they had normal blood pressure. 28% were pre-hypertensive, so pre-high blood pressure, like those who were at risk of having probably chronic high blood pressure. And then 54% were hypertensive. During the study, all participants assigned to the ginkgo and placebo groups showed similar changes in blood pressure and pulse pressure, and there were no differences in the rate of hypertension incidence in either group. Therefore, ginkgo extract does not appear to reduce blood pressure or the incidence of hypertension in elderly people. Yet another study analyzed cancer risk and found little evidence of a protective role of ginkgo biloba leaf extract in cancer occurrence. Under the participants in both groups, the demographic, lifestyle, and medical characteristics were comparable, so they were all pretty much in the same. They were peers, okay? Now, during the follow-up period, after about 6 years, a little over 6 years, there were 162 cancer hospitalizations in the ginkgo-treated group and 148 cases in the placebo group. So there was actually more cases of cancer in the ginkgo group. I'm not saying that ginkgo caused it. It's just that it doesn't seem to be working as a,
No, that's a...
Now, compared to the placebo group, higher incidence rates of breast and colorectal cancers and lower incidence rates of prostate cancer were observed in the ginkgo treated group. These data should be cautiously viewed, as they say, due to several study limitations, such as insufficient follow-up time for cancer occurrences. Nonetheless, the findings do not support the hypothesis that the consumption of ginkgo reduces the risk of cancer. So they're even telling you, like, hey, no study's perfect, but we are not finding any sort of thing here.
Well, with every single study, intellectual integrity requires that you make those statements right there. Like, just because this result happened, we cannot control for all the other variables that could have contributed to that result. So we're got to let you know that in the discussion section of this research article.
I don't know. This is me being the bearer of bad news, I guess. I honestly wished it did work. That would be great. I've never taken it, but like I've heard of people taking it for memory loss and stuff, and I don't think it's dangerous to take personally, but it's we have evidence that it really doesn't do much different. So now that I've bursted some bubbles, and I'm sorry for that, let's discuss any adverse effects of this tricky little herb. There have been cases of ginkgo seed poisoning. In China and in Japan. And I wanted to talk about the seeds mainly, but since ancient times, really. Ginkgo seed poisoning is primarily due to the neurotoxic compound. It's called MPN. It's a 4,0-methylpyroxidine pyridoxine, methylpyridoxine. I was like, that doesn't sound right. It's also known as ginkgo toxin. Just could have gone with that.
Well, let's just do that.
As well as MPN glucoside. MPN is chemically related to vitamin B6, and it interferes with its biosynthesis, metabolism, and function. So it kind of takes its place, I guess. Now, MPN, this ginkgo toxin, inhibits enzymatic activation of vitamin B6, and it results in vitamin B6 deficiency, which leads to a diminishment of, it gets a little complicated, but GABA, aminobutyric acid synthesis, basically. I'm not going to go over what all that is, but not fun. Ginkgo seeds contain MPN at concentrations of 170 to 404 parts per million. So now, one of the first documented cases that we know of in modern history involved the deaths of 2 boys in Japan in 1881. I know I said modern, but it's, modern reporting. There were outbreaks of poisonings around and after the time of World War II, when there again were food shortages. With further understanding and the spread of knowledge, there have been no deaths in Japan reported since 1969, at least, because now people know, like, hey, you should eat that. But the treatment for ginkgo poisoning is vitamin B6, and those treated often recover fully because it's messing with, vitamin B6 and its functions within the body and things like that. Yeah. While we have not had so many deaths, there are still cases here and there of ginkgo seed poisoning. Reported in 2001, a 36-year-old Japanese woman experienced frequent vomiting and generalized convulsions 4 hours after consuming 70 to 80 ginkgo nuts cooked in a microwave oven. I'm not sure if that's like a common snack, but that's a lot of them. That's a lot of nuts.
God, I hope not.
In 2006, it was reported that a 2-year-old Japanese girl presented with vomiting, diarrhea, and irritability. I'd be irritable too. 7 hours after the ingestion of 50 to 60 roasted ginkgo seeds. Kids put things in their mouth. Honestly, it would shock me that she didn't choke on them, to be honest. That's, yeah. Another 2-year-old Japanese boy had vomiting and afebrile convulsions 4 hours after eating about 50 ginkgo nuts. More recently, in 2015, a 23-month-old boy in Switzerland experienced 2 afebrile tonic-clonic seizures. That's like the full convulsion type, seizures after the consumption of an unknown amount of ginkgo seeds. And the poisoning was confirmed by measuring the MPN levels in both blood and urine at the time. A 51-year-old Korean woman had overconsumed large amounts of ginkgo nuts within 1 hour, and about half a day later, she experienced seizures and confusion after the fact with a decreased blood vitamin B6 level, which alerted them to hey, that's probably what happened. So the leaf extract in supplements has also caused some adverse effects in people with certain conditions. I know I mentioned the supplements earlier and how we don't have any evidence that they actually really help, but they may not hurt you either. But if you have certain conditions, they can. In the United Kingdom, 2 patients, a 78-year-old man and an 84-year-old woman with epilepsy, which was well controlled before by medications, presented with recurrent seizures within 2 weeks of taking 120 milligrams per day ginkgo leaf extract. There was a fatal case of a 55-year-old male patient who suffered a breakthrough seizure with no evidence of noncompliance with his anticonvulsant medicines. But following his death, his physician discovered that he had started taking herbal supplements, ginkgo biloba, ginseng, saw palmetto extracts, as well as other non-prescription vitamins about a year prior to his death. And the autopsy report revealed subtherapeutic serum levels of the anticonvulsants that he was supposed to be taking. But it wasn't so much that he wasn't taking them. It's actually been theorized that the ginkgo extract decreased the metabolism activity within his body of those medications, making them less effective. And this is why you should always tell your doctor what you're taking, even if it's not prescription. Yes.
over the counter. Tell them they're going to know what you're taking prescription wise,
It's
but
still important.
they also need to be aware of what you're taking over the counter because the interactions. Yes, and many things have not been verified by the FDA in America, and so there's not this giant rigor, degree of rigor to over the counter stuff or unverified
I
stuff.
think in a
So
bonus episode we just had, I was talking about how some supplements they found, some supplements adulterated in the recent past with like things like lead and lead chromate, basically because it's like it can make turmeric look better. Just different things, and depending on where they come from, you don't always know where they come from. Even if it says, "Oh, it was packed right here," I'm like, "Yeah, it was packed here, but was it made here?" You don't know that. A lot of times, it's not. If it's like something like a spice or herb like that, but yeah, it can be problematic. And also, like the FDA just recently started regulating heavy metals within supplements. Just recently, looking for it.
Yikes.
Before it was just like,
wow.
Oh, is it carrying salmonella?
Ugh. Oh, so like the colloidal silver thing
Well, no, you
is
could
dead,
still
I guess.
They just have to tell you what it is. Like, you could still get it.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
Colloidal silver, it's not going to.
Sorry.
From what I understand, it's not going to injure you. I haven't looked that deep into it, but it could turn you blue if you take enough of it. But it's also not going to really help you with anything. I know some people are like, it helps with infections. I'm like, antibiotics are fine.
Yes. Also, are you getting that many infections to where you need to buy something?
I know iron's a metal, but if you take too much iron, you'll die.
Anyways.
Actually, so don't do that either. The dose makes the poison.
Don't do that. Someone famous once said.
Yeah. Another adverse effect being looked at is the possibility of spontaneous bleeding. This is still being studied. It's not a confirmed effect, but it has been shown to have antiplatelet properties. But yeah, like I said, they're still looking at conclusions of various studies. There's been like conclusions that have differed when it comes to bleeding events in humans. So they're still looking at a lot of that. Some have reported other adverse effects such as palpitations and dermatitis, but these have been more isolated events. So it's just everybody's different. So there's that. And I like what this one article I found said about studies on ginkgo leaf extract supplements. They said, animal studies have indicated that ginkgo extract induced liver tumors and also targeted thyroid and nose. Human clinical studies also showed that cancer incidences for breast and colon were significantly increased. The components of ginkgo extract that may be responsible for ginkgo's toxicity, genotoxicity, and carcinogenicity have not been definitively identified. Therefore, more studies on the mechanism of toxicity and genotoxicity of ginkgo extract are needed. So basically, something in these extracts is doing bad stuff, but more study is needed to figure out what it is within this particular thing, because it can.
Right. Okay, so now I understand. Yeah, I understand why you said what you said when I asked what the mechanism is.
There are many constituents in ginkgo biloba leaves, including flavanol glycosides, terpene lactones. I mean, these are going to be things you've never heard. And it cracks me up when people are like, I only take things where I can like pronounce the ingredients on the label. And I'm like, I promise you, the stuff that's in your supplements, you will not be able to pronounce. What they contain.
No, ma'am.
It gets down to the, molecular level. So
no.
But like, I don't think if you're just taking it here and there, I don't think it'll hurt you. But at the same time, they're looking at different adverse effects, but also we don't know that it will help you either. But then there's also like I said, the adulteration of supplements that you may need to worry about, especially because of how popular ginkgo is, how easy it is to sell by simply labeling it as such, whether there are other components or not. Recent analysis in 2016 of ginkgo extracts from Asia, Europe, and North America have shown that some 65 products were adulterated in some way. Another study from that year also showed that only 3 out of 42 samples of ginkgo extract were authentic. So there's that. And these are like usually third-party like testing type things. It's not like like when it comes to regulation, there's only certain things that the FDA is going to be looking for when it comes to products coming in from outside. So, also, as we've previously discussed, you just really need to tell a doctor if you're taking supplements like these, because they can and will interact with other medications. that may be prescribed. Ginkgo can interact with aspirin, warfarin, trazodone, omeprazole, hypertensive agents, anti-seizure meds, and anti-hyperglycemics. So just please be careful with your supplements and do some research. Talk to your doctor about it. But yeah, that's ginkgo.
Okay.
I promise I went down a rabbit hole there, but there's less of the other stuff, I promise. You know me.
It's really good.
But let's talk nuts.
Yes.
Cashews, to be precise. We're gonna talk about cashews.
The way you said that.
Because even cashews have their place in folklore. There's actually a really cute story from the Philippines. And it was once believed there that the cashew seeds actually grew inside the cashew fruit. Have you ever seen a cashew fruit? It's strange looking.
No, I don't think so.
But you'll understand the story after you look it up. But yeah, the way that many seeds do grow inside the fruit, of course. But one seed was not happy with this arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
He heard the animals and people happily laughing and talking and joking in the forest outside of his little home inside that fruit. And he wanted nothing more than to just be outside so he could join the fun. So he just wished and wished and wished that he could be outside. So a passing fairy actually heard his request, reached out to touch his home, and said, "I grant your wish." So he finally saw the sun and the people and the animals, and it was all great fun. So he asked the fairy to remain outside forever, and the fairy was like, "Cool, sounds great." Later, however, all that went away and a huge storm came, and the cashew wished to be inside, away from the wind and rain. The fairy returned later after the storm had passed, and the cashew was like, "Hey, I want to go back inside because this is not cool." But the fairy said no. The fairy said that it should be a lesson to be grateful for what the creator has given you. So, like, the fairy was like, "Sucks for you, brah." But anyway, the cashew eventually adapted, though he grew a hard shell around itself, and as well as an irritating chemical to protect itself. And that's the chemical we're going to talk about because, yeah. So eating nuts like almonds and cashews and the like, they're healthy. We know that. They're good for you. But raw cashews are poisonous. This is actually due to urushiol, which is the same oily resin found in poison ivy. It's funny, I could say it in my head, but like when it comes, no, my brain's weird. Urushiol. But the reason it causes so much strife is because it's basically the same thing as you find on poison ivy. But Becca, they sell raw cashews in the store. They do, but these have been processed to remove the urushiol.
Yes. These have been cleared by a lawyer that works for the massive food company that's selling these.
These have been processed to remove the urushiol. So you're welcome. Also, we really do put a lot of trust in the food processing companies when you think about it. But cashews are really great for blood sugar control, cholesterol control. They're really great for that. They grow on the cashew tree, hence why they're a tree nut. And the nut that you eat is actually the seed that comes from the inside of the drupe. It's called a drupe, and it sits below this little pear-shaped red or yellow fruit known as the cashew apple. So it's, you just look it up after this, you'll see. And it extends from that part extends from it above. It's weird if you've never seen it, but just look it up. The urushiol coats the nut and can cause reactions similar to poison ivy, including in the areas around the mouth if you try to eat it. But this is why shelled cashews, like ones with shells around them, are not sold, and why the nuts themselves need to be processed to remove any of that oil that may have contaminated the nut inside. Processing basically involves steaming or roasting at high temperatures. Now, the Center for Disease Control published a report in 1982 about a batch of more than 7,500 bags of shell-contaminated cashews being sold in Pennsylvania and Maryland, mostly as part of a Little League fundraiser. And around 20% of these cashew eaters developed a rash that you would normally get with, say, a really bad poison ivy reaction. Now, funny enough, the family that involves cashews and poison ivy also extends to pistachios and mangoes. So if you're sensitive to poison ivy, you may have issues with mangoes as well if not prepared properly. Urushiol, if you didn't know, it causes a rash in some people, sometimes severely due to the allergic response. So if you've ever been lucky enough not to be affected by poison ivy, just trying to give you some explanation. But the urushiol penetrates the skin, binds to the cells there. Your immune system triggers this response because it's a foreign substance. The inflammatory response that occurs as a result causes this itchy rash. And it can spread if you still have the urushiol on the skin. Like the rash itself doesn't spread, but if you still got the oils on your skin, that can get elsewhere. So now urushiol can remain active on surfaces or even dead plants for up to 5 years. Yeah, if it's dead, still don't touch it.
What?
Don't do it. Wear gloves.
Mercy.
You should
Okay.
wear gloves when you're outside anyway, picking up stuff.
That's
There's
impressive.
all kinds of stuff in the soil that we'll go over one day. I'm talking bacteria, stuff you do not want. We're going to go over tetanus in the future. So anyway, I actually intended to go into a whole poison flower garden review in this episode. But in order to do it justice, I think it needs its own episode, and I'm sure we are over time at this point anyway.
Yes, Rebecca. It needs its own episode.
I was getting excited.
Every episode can't be 6 hours long.
I'm almost done. I am.
I know you do. That's why I have to stop you.
I just have so much fun doing all this. But yeah, but y'all know I love history. I love folklore alongside the science and of toxic substances, so I will need room and time to include that as well. So next week we're going to go into various.
Yes, we'll make it.
Well, no,
I'll
make
it a 3-part series,
Don't worry.
which is what it's going to take.
We're going to do next week. We're going to do some
3
common poisonous flowering.
We're going to need 3 because we can't do 2 episodes that are 1 hour and 57 minutes long. That's too much.
1 hour and 10 minutes. But I haven't edited it yet.
We've already recorded. We've already recorded 45 minutes. Okay. Let the listener and viewer understand. My wife will acquire 30,000 words of research for every single episode we do. And I finally put my foot down and say, listen, 5,000 words an episode. If you need more than that, we're doing a 2-parter.
Okay. Never mind.
Did you just look? Oh, that's so funny.
I was close. 5,943 words. I'm not lying, actually, but that was like after I went and deleted some to add to the next week.
Yeah, you deleted 4,000 words.
I did it because I was like, I'm gonna have to do this next week. So aren't you proud of me? So
yes, I am.
Next week we're gonna talk about some common poisonous flowering plants that we haven't discussed already. I know we've talked about things like foxglove and stuff, and those are very pretty, and I love those too. But I want to focus on ones I know we haven't really talked about.
Yes.
So, and I'm going to be including some history, some folklore, some fun times.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Of course you will.
I
all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode, and we will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.